Welcome to Let's Talk Micro. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Micro. As always, I hope you had a good week. Remember that Let's Talk Micro is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Overcast, TuneIn Radio, Pandora, GoodPods. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find Let's Talk Micro. I am on Instagram as Let's Talk Micro, no apostrophe, and on Twitter as Let's Talk Micro 1. So go ahead and follow, leave feedback, any podcast, topic suggestions. They are always welcome and appreciated. And on my social platforms, I always like to post pictures of organisms and give updates as to when the next episode is coming out. So before I start with the new episode, I always like to talk a little bit about the previous episode. Before I do that, I want to remind you that there's a special episode on monkeypox with Dr. Rodney Rohde from Texas State University. So go ahead and check it out. A lot of good information. Sometimes, we get a little lost with all the information out there. Dr. Rohde is very experienced. He is a microbiologist. And he puts all the information that we need to know in a manner that's easy to understand. And, very informative, very educational. So if you haven't checked out that episode, go ahead and do so. It is episode 48. Talking Monkeypox with Dr. Rodney Rohde. And if you haven't checked out the previous episode of Let's Talk Micro, go ahead and do so. It is about Streptococcus aeruginosus group. So I continue going over beta hemolytic strep, and this time it was Streptococcus aeruginosus group, which is composed of three members: Streptococcus aeruginosus, Streptococcus intermedius, and Streptococcus constellatus. So in this episode, I go over the hemolysis because, this group actually can have all three types of hemolysis: alpha, beta, gamma. I go over biochemical results. I go over which species, tend to be more on the beta hemolytic form than others. What diseases they cause, they are seen on, what kind of testing to do for them. So it is a good episode, so go ahead and check it out. And that's episode 49. Streptococcus aeruginosus. On today's episode, we have a great interview. So, as always, as you've seen as part of this podcast, the format, I like to bring guests that either they have published works in microbiology or they are doing great things for medical laboratory sciences. So today's guest is very experienced and has made a lot of contributions to laboratory medicine. He is a professor of lab medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, and he's also a co-lab director at a hospital in San Francisco. He has published, but what makes this guest stand out from others is that he has authored some books about laboratory stories. So something a little bit different from your regular textbooks about clinical chemistry, blood banking, microbiology, etc. So he has published a series of books that are about laboratory stories. And what made me, this was very interesting, of course, but then I saw an article that he's getting ready to make a show about laboratory medicine. So listen to this interview. Dr. Alan Wu, he's very passionate about laboratory medicine. He wants to bring more awareness about what we do. So this is his approach to it. And of course, he says, he has contributed by publishing and textbooks. But this is his passion. And he wants to work on this television show. So this is a very novel idea. We do have a lot of medicine shows, but really not about the laboratory. So let's go ahead and check out this interview. So on today's episode, we have a guest that's very active in many ways in laboratory medicine. He has made many contributions, and his name is Dr. Alan Wu. So, Dr. Wu, welcome to Let's Talk Micro.
Thank you, Louis, for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure. So let's go ahead and start with an introduction and what kind of work do you do?
So I am a professor of laboratory medicine at the University of California in San Francisco and co-core lab director at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. I've been in the field for 40 years. In addition to clinical service, I teach clinical lab scientist students, lab medicine residents, clinical chemistry fellows, and I have an active translational research program.
So I see that as I was looking at your profile, I see that you have many publications, among them 6 books consisting of short stories about laboratory medicine. Can you tell the audience more about these books?
These are collections of short stories within the lab disciplines of chemistry, toxicology, microbiology, molecular diagnostics, and immunology. They are written at the level of the lay public and are based on real medical cases.
Okay. Yes, and I was actually I've been reading one of them, the one that's titled Microbiology, of course, because of what you don't know will kill you. And I'm just getting through it, and it's really very interesting. I like 2 stories about the one about pipetting, which I kind of, before we got to that point, I kind of figured out that that was going to be, what the person was doing, and also about the one about gassing on the group A strep. So definitely, it resonated with me as a medical laboratory scientist. When I was going through school, I heard about people before doing, mouth pipetting years ago. And, I heard stories, of course, that's something that's not done. And it shouldn't, definitely. So I'm definitely enjoying this book.
Well, thank you.
I have a question as I was reading them, because I know, like it says, sometimes is the person that, for example, when they're describing a character, they say, so this person got here, let's say when I was the supervisor of this. Is that person you, or the narrator is a character as well?
Yes, it is roughly based on me, but it is somewhat fictionalized, sort of like what Hollywood does. They expand roles of individuals that might have been spread over several individuals. So, I mean, they're the kinds of things that a lab director would be involved with. Not necessarily me. I'm actually not the microbiology chief, yet I write stories on medical microbiology because they're all part of the clinical lab genre.
So yeah, something definitely different from what I've seen out there. I mean, I always see many textbooks, of course, about clinical laboratory sciences, but seeing this, in a book format like this, it makes for a very interesting read. And for the audience out there, so basically all they have to do is just like in any search engine or search for your name and books, and they will find them. It was very easy. That's how I found them. So if you're out there and you want to read a book and see laboratory medicine being represented in a different way, like, like kind of like a fiction style, go ahead and check them out. I definitely recommend them.
Well, thank you very much for that plug. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir. So regarding the books, what led you to write them? And what do you hope to achieve with them?
Well, as lab directors, we are all exposed to interesting and fascinating medical cases. I took the initiative to write about these cases, keeping the lab science information accurate while fictionalizing patient medical and social histories for HIPAA compliance purposes.
Okay. So now that as I was reading, another article, which is the one that brought me forward to extend the invitation, was that I saw an article that said lab director and author to create TV series highlighting unsung heroes of the medical field. So what can you tell the audience about this prospective TV show, and what is the goal?
Ideally, I want a scripted, dramatic program that centers around a clinical lab director whose staff uses science to solve medical problems and avoid errors. The model is the TV show Crime Scene Investigation, where science is used to solve crime. Prior to CSI, all crime shows featured police. Today, all medical shows are centered around doctors. I want to change that narrative to highlight the essential work that we all do. Remember, 70% of all medical decisions are based on the result of a clinical laboratory test. And yet, most doctors and individuals in the public don't really understand the effort it takes for us to generate a quality result. They think that you can send a sample to the lab, someone plugs it into a black box, and you get an instant answer, and that's all there is to it. And we're looking to show that there is so much more involved, and that when you don't pay attention, that bad things can happen.
Okay. Yes, and definitely there's definitely a lack of there's some unawareness about what we do. And we as laboratorians, we definitely deal with that, with the lack of understanding. And sometimes, we get the phone calls. And of course, there are many healthcare providers that they're very understanding. But sometimes, the frustration about what happened, why can you run this test, or what's taking so long, or why can you use this tube, or why isn't it enough? So definitely there's not a lot of, there seems to be unawareness about what we do. And like you said about the TV shows, yes, I have watched a lot of television. I have seen medical shows. And like you said, they are about doctors, one of them, like, ER, which ran for a very long time. And there is definitely a lack of representation on the lab. So when I saw this, it came to mind that, for example, in that particular show, they said that they mentioned the lab once, and it was about they were waiting for a gram stain result, and they told the doctor, go ahead and watch them do the gram stain because they like to lose things around there. So that's all they feature about us. And then there was another show called Scrubs, where they actually they presented the text sometimes, like someone like very moody, what little they show of him. And then there was also this episode about where one of the nurses had an urine that she found in the trash and it wasn't labeled. So she spends basically the whole episode trying to find out who it belongs to. So definitely, yes, there's not representation out there. So I think this is a great effort on your part, and I thank you for it. So about the show, is it a limited series, or are you maybe hoping to sustain it for a prolonged period of time?
CSI, the show, Crime Scene Investigation, was exceptionally successful with hundreds of episodes and several spin-offs. Within my books, I have published over 150 short stories that can be crafted into episodes. If this is done right, I believe we can have a prolonged series. Due to the pandemic, everyone now knows and talks about COVID testing. Where can I get it? What does it mean? Why does it take so long? So the time is ripe right now. And there are many more studio outlets today, and they're all looking for unique content. I believe that my idea is unlike any television show that's being aired today.
Yes, definitely. You mentioned CSI, and I watched the regular one and some of the spin-offs as well. So yeah, it definitely ranked for a long period of time. And like you said, yeah, especially now, with COVID and all the situations that we have gone through in the lab, it is a good time for a show. And also to another point that you mentioned, nowadays, there's so many streaming platforms. So it is possible to maybe, years ago might have been a little more difficult to get a project out there, but now there are many outlets. So if one doesn't take it, maybe another. So there's definitely more opportunities out there. So I know I will definitely watch it when it airs. Can you tell us maybe anything about in what stage it is right now, or?
Well, I have written a pilot script, and it's being reviewed by professional screenwriters. You have seen the result of a publicist that I hired to promote the idea, to get the concept out to Hollywood executives. I'm putting together more content as we speak. I am considering putting together my own podcast series to sort of promote the idea. If we don't act now, then we are going to get run over by CMS. So just prior to the pandemic, the first round of PAMA budget cuts took place, which resulted in a 20% cut in laboratory reimbursements for outpatient services. There's another round of cut that's being planned in the ensuing months and years to come. And if this continues, we will not have the funding to do the kinds of things that we need to do to keep our lab current, to keep our testing accurate, to be able to train next generation laboratorians, to deliver the quality of services that we as a nation deserve to have. So I'm entering my senior years, and I have every hope that the medical services and clinical laboratory services that I will need will be there for me. And I am not optimistic that that will be the case, because if we continue to undergo budget cuts, then that has a trickling effect all the way down the pipeline. We can't get companies to produce products. Researchers can't develop new tests. Doctors are not going to be able to update what they're doing, and it's going to affect our medical care slowly, but no doubt it will have an impact. And this is not what anybody wants today.
No, definitely not. I mean, it's just something sometimes, as being, proper training and staffing and lack of supplies, it makes it difficult for us in the lab to, produce quality results. And there have been some, a couple of years that have been very challenging for us. And, we have worked very hard. Is there anything else that you might want to add?
Well, I can give you a little bit of insight as to how I'm going to construct my series. So in order to create a compelling show that people, not medical professionals, but the lay public will want to watch, I need to have recurring characters. So the main protagonists are, in fact, lab directors and section chiefs like myself, along with the staff that work with us. I have also created a recurring antagonist. I have a tech who works in my workplace drug testing lab, whose family is killed by a drug-impaired bus driver who cheated on his drug tests. Disillusioned, this tech turns bad and forms a company to make performance-enhancing drugs and therefore causing more medical maladies, and drug testing adulteration products, allowing other people to cheat. So there's going to be a debate, or going to be a confrontation between the people who are trying to do good and the people who are trying to benefit from the system. I'm hoping that that will be compelling drama that will entice people to tune in every week.
I mean, definitely, yeah, sounds compelling to me. But yeah, I work in the field, so I will definitely, like I said earlier, I will be watching when it comes out. Sounds definitely very interesting. Like I always like to say on this podcast, I'm always a fan, and I thank those out there that use their knowledge, their positions, to further laboratory medicine, either bringing awareness, advocating for better things for us. So I definitely want to thank you for what you're doing. It's definitely, like I said, something very interesting and a little bit different, with the books and the show, but definitely it will bring more awareness to what we do. And of course, good luck with your podcast if you do end up creating that. And if you need to, you're more than welcome to come back here if you need to use this platform also when you create that podcast to promote it and give it more awareness. So, Dr. Wu, I want to thank you for taking the time to coming to Let's Talk Micro.
And again, I thank you for having me on, and I hope that your listeners will find value in our discussion today.
Thank you, sir. And like I said earlier, just all you have to do if you're curious about checking the books, very easy. Google. There's a very popular place where you search for stuff and buy stuff online. You can go ahead and use that platform and check for it or any others, but it's a very easy find. So thank you.
I do have one other
Yes.
comment, perhaps an invitation. Prior to the pandemic, I have toured the country as well as internationally, giving presentations on the need to promote the value of clinical laboratory testing. Now that the pandemic seems to be settling down a little bit, we're not seeing nearly the number of deaths and critical care patients. Country is definitely opening up. I would like to continue to meet with groups and to give a presentation on the things that I'm trying to do. The lectures have always been very dynamic and exciting for people to hear because, like you said, it's not the usual lectures that we get on the technology and the medicine of our practice. Those are obviously very important, and I contributed to those for 35 years. But you can tell from my voice that my passion is this, that I believe that if we do not act, and that this television show is going to be the best way for us to promote our agenda. This is an agenda for all of us, that if we don't do this and we're not successful, then things are going to be very different and not in a good way. So I welcome anybody who, a national group or even a local group who are in need of a speaker. I'm willing to travel.
Okay. Yeah. So there you have it out there, audience, and definitely you're very reachable also. I mean, when I extended the invitation for here, I think within no time at all, you had already responded. So definitely all you have to do is just, if you want to contact Dr. Wu, you go ahead and, you can, if you want to, do you want to give an email address or a place where they can contact you to make it easier?
Absolutely. Email address is simple, Alan, ALAN .WU at ucsf.edu. I'm welcome to hear from any and all of you.
All right. So there you have it, audience. Alan Wu at ucsf.edu. All right. So once again, thank you, Dr. Wu.
Thank you.
And that, my dear audience, it's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to Dr. Wu's interview. I enjoyed conducting it. I think this is a great initiative, something really interesting. So many streaming platforms out there. We can, so many opportunities to get more projects out there. And a show about the lab. I mean, those of us in laboratory medicine, we see CSI, ER, other shows, and the lab is never represented. So this sounds very interesting, and like I said on the interview, I'm definitely gonna watch it. As always, stay motivated, continue bringing that passion to what you do. It's so important. Stay safe, and of course, continue talking micro. Until the next time, bye.